Okay, so in this lecture, I want to finish up this objection to Kant that in a way his moral theory is too strict. That Kantianism does not allow us enough leeway for dealing with people who are acting badly. And remember I said, well, Kant, at least as Nagel interprets him, and I think it's a good interpretation, Kant could allow for the use of force, for using force against others in certain situations. Granted, there are going to be some pretty strict limits on it, who you could target, what you can do, but at least he'll allow it within those limits. But now we get to the issue of Kant on lying. And Kant on lying, Kant says some things that are rather infamous. Kant is very, very anti-lying, right? And, that might not seem surprising. We usually think that it's wrong to lie, right? You shouldn't lie to other people. It's a pretty widely agreed upon basic moral rule, right? Well, the problem is that there seem to be some cases where most of us would agree that not only is lying acceptable, lying is the morally right thing to do. Let me give you an example. So imagine that you're sitting at home one night, you're minding your own business, and someone frantically knocks on your door. They're pounding the door down. You open it, and they say, "Oh my God, this guy is trying to kill me." Before you can say anything else, they run into the back of your house. You're still trying to figure out what to do with this. You get another knock at your door, let's say a minute or two later, and lo and behold, it's another guy. You see that there's a knife, or we'll make it a gun, hidden under his coat, and he says, "Yeah, did you see my friend? I want to talk to him." So what do you do with this murderer, right? Now look, students always try to get creative here. They say, well, I punch him in the nose, or maybe I get my own gun, or, I just slam the door on him. But let's just say, let's imagine, that you can't do anything but lie, right? Some people will say, well, maybe I'll beat around the bush. Say, well, I don't know. What's your friend look like? If it comes right down to it, if he says, no, I want to know, did you see my friend? I think you did. Where is he? What do you do? If it's lie to him, or tell him where his friend is, or just be silent and maybe he shoots you too, what do you do? I think most of us, I think practically everyone would say, you lie to this guy. Not only do you lie to him as well as you can. You point out the door, you point down some blind alley, and you say, oh yeah, definitely, I saw him. He knocked on the door, I wouldn't let him in, and he just ran off down that alley. You go get him, you can catch him. You do that, the guy leaves, you slam the door, you lock it, you call the police, right? Every single one of us would say that's what you should do. And look, this isn't just a cute philosophical scenario. This isn't just a little story philosophers tell. Things like this have happened in the real world, right? People in World War II hiding Jews from the Nazis. This happened all over Europe, and at a certain point they would have to lie, right? If the Gestapo is at your door, or whoever their collaborators are in your country, and you want to keep these people from getting killed and keep yourself from getting killed, you have to lie. And with the Gestapo or any other arm of the Nazis, you certainly couldn't get cute, right? You couldn't try to stonewall them. You could only lie and say, I've never seen these people. They are not hiding here. Well, that is not what Kant says. Kant says that you should tell the truth to the murderer at the door. Now, in the essay I had you guys read, this French writer had said, well, Kant would have to say this, and this was an objection to Kant, and Kant just bites the bullet here. Kant says, yes, I would say this, and here's why. We'll talk about why in a minute. But Kant says not only should you tell the truth to the murderer, but if you don't tell the truth to the murderer, you are partially responsible for whatever might happen. Kant paints this weird story. Imagine that you lie to the murderer. You say that, the guy hiding is in the alley out back. Unbeknownst to you, he's climbed out the back window and the murderer goes and finds him. Kant says you are partially responsible for this person getting killed. On the other hand, if you just tell the truth, you say, oh, I think he's cowering under the bed in the back bedroom, and Mr. Murderer goes and shoots him, then Kant would say, well, that's all on the murderer, that's not you. Why in the world does Kant say that? Not just that you should tell the truth, but if you don't tell the truth, that you are in a sense responsible for what happens. That is a very weird thing to say. Now look, I don't know that we ultimately need to agree with Kant here. I'm pretty sympathetic to Kant on the whole. I don't agree with him. But Kant is not a stupid person. Kant is, he might say some weird things, but Kant is brilliant. Even, he might be crazy, but he's brilliant. So why say this? What are his reasons? Well, Kant's reasons here are really straightforward. Kant says you cannot use someone as a mere means, no matter what. By lying to the murderer, you are using him as a mere means. You are taking his choice away. You are not respecting him as a rational being. You're trying to manipulate him. You're trying to get him to do what you want. You're not respecting his ability to make a choice. And you might say, well, Kant, that's crazy. I know what his choice is going to be. He's going to go murder this person. And Kant would say, well, yes, but if he does, that's his choice. That's his responsibility. And that brings us to the second point here. Why Kant says you would be partially responsible if you lied. If you don't lie, you're just letting something happen. You're letting the murderer make a choice. The choice is all on the murderer. If you lie, Kant would say you've done something. You've helped to create the situation. You've, to put it in a more metaphorical way that might make it, but might also make some sense, is you've mixed your will into the situation. You've intervened. You've helped to create whatever situation might result. So that's why Kant says you would be at least partially responsible if you lie. Now look, I'm going to guess that most of you, even if you might be sympathetic to Kant, are not convinced. Now we'll talk in a few seconds about ways we might try to get Kant out of this. As weird as it sounds, Kant is a very bright person, but he might be wrong about what his own theory says, right? That might be a possibility. Scientists are sometimes wrong about what their theories would say, right? So no embarrassment to Kant if maybe he gets it wrong in this one particular case. But one thing I want to note to you guys is that Kant is hardly alone here. Kant is hardly crazy. Most of us would say, well, lie to the murderer. There have definitely been people in the history of philosophy who would say, don't lie to the murderer. Don't lie in this situation. St. Augustine, a thinker way back sort of at the end of the Roman Empire, very, very insistent that we should never lie no matter what. And it's not just philosophers. I talked about people hiding Jews from the Nazis before. Well, there was this village in France, and they were hiding Jews from the Nazis. They, in fact, saved a lot of people at considerable risk to themselves. But they were very religious, and some members of this village, when it came to the point that they would have to lie to protect people in their house, they would have to, it turned out, not just lie, but they would have to create counterfeit passports and documents. They said that's a step too far. A lot of them had trouble with that. We're willing to protect these people even at great risk to our own lives, but we can't lie. A good many of them later did choose to lie, but some of them didn't. So Kant is, most of us are going to think Kant's a little weird here, But he's not the only person who will say this kind of thing. Now, nonetheless, I still think this is a weird thing to say for Kant. And I think if Kant does end up saying this, to me at least, it seems a mark against Kantianism. That you have to just roll over to this murderer and give him the information he wants. That you have to, because you can't use him, you have to, in a sense, let him use you. That seems bizarre to me. Well, can Kant avoid this? I think he might be able to. And I'm not going to go deeply into this, but two philosophers have given suggestions about how he might. Christine Korsgaard says, well, look, remember I said before Kant thinks the formula of universal law and the formula of humanity always give the same answer. Korsgaard says, well, actually the formula of universal law and the formula of humanity might come apart in some weird cases. In this case here, she thinks, the formula of universal law and the formula of humanity come apart. Well, why do they come apart? Because the murderer is lying to you. He says, well, can I find my friend? Think about, to take the real world cases. The Nazis were constantly lying. They were not telling the truth about what they were doing with the people they were deporting, right? The murderer or the Gestapo is lying to you, and they think you are fooled by their lie. So it turns out, Korsgaard would say, when someone is lying to you and thinks that you are fooled by their lie, they think you have no idea what's going on. We could, in fact, universalize, I will always lie in that situation. Because they're lying to you, because they have no idea that you know the truth, you could universalize lying to fool them. So, I think Korsgaard's solution is kind of neat. Look, the very fact that the murderer is doing something wrong, trying to use you, is what would allow you to universalize your principle of lying to him. If someone is trying to lie to you to get information and they don't know that you know, yes, you could universalize your lie. And Korsgaard will say, well, yes, the formula of humanity would still rule it out. But she says, well, let's make a little alteration to Kant. Formula of universal law, formula of humanity. Formula of humanity is the more idealistic principle. When people are treating you well, when they're not acting badly, then you have to follow the formula of humanity. But she thinks the formula of humanity is one for a sort of perfect world where everybody's decent. If the other person is trying to use you, she thinks, well, then we can use this, what she thinks is a less strict formula of universal law. That's pretty clever. I'm not so sure. She's taken a lot of steps. There's not a lot of stuff that's in Kant there. It's creative. I think she's going pretty far out on a limb. More directly, this guy Michael Cholby has just said, well, look, Kant has just a weird, bee in his bonnet about lying. Kant would allow self-defense if someone's trying to kill you. Nagel has talked about how Kant would allow you to use violence in response. Kant also allows self-defense. In other writings, he says, well, you could defend yourself, you could defend others if someone's trying to kill you. And Cholby would just say, well, if you can use violence against somebody in self-defense, why couldn't you lie in self-defense? Cholby's thought again is, they've created the bad situation where you have to respond with lying or violence. In a sense, you can't say, well, I'm using them as a mere means. Cholby would say, very similar to Korsgaard, I'm just defending myself. I'm keeping myself from being used as a mere means. The fault is on the murderer or whoever who has created this situation that I have to respond with lying or violence to keep myself from being used as a mere means. So hopefully that response makes sense to you. Kant says you have to tell the truth here, but I think because the murderer is the one who puts you in this situation, you might be able to get out of it. You might be able, even to be consistent with Kantianism, get out of this. But to be clear, Kant is going, in most circumstances where self-defense isn't an issue or something like it, Kant will be very clear you cannot lie even to create good consequences. That is using someone as a mere means. That is forbidden. Well, one final thing, and this is often the case in philosophy. Cholby and Korsgaard's responses themselves kind of create a problem for Kant. Because before we said, well, Kantianism is very clear, it's very strict, and now it seems, well, it depends on how you describe the situation. Lying, before it seemed like, well, we can't universalize lying because that won't work, people won't be fooled by it, but now we say, well, you can universalize lying to a murderer when he lies to you because that would still work. The worry here is, especially for the route Korsgaard takes, that falls back, on the formula of universal law, can't you describe any sort of action in a way that it could be universalized? I couldn't say universalize everyone shoplifts, but why not say everyone shoplifts from this particular store only from 9:30 in the morning to 9:45 on June 3rd? That seems like it could be universalized. Maybe, right? Or, everyone who is a Pisces born in Galax, Virginia, where I was born, right? They can lie in this store. And and I said before, they can steal from this store. That seems like it might pass, right? Security guards don't know when I was born. They don't know where I was born, right? And look, the point is, this is getting kind of cute, but when you universalize a maxim, what kinds of information are you supposed to build in? Say, in similar circumstances, people act this way. Well, how do you describe the circumstances? Formula of humanity, for reasons we'll see, might do a bit better, but there's still a worry about what treats someone as a mere means, right? Cholby will say you can treat someone as a mere means when they put you in a situation that you have to respond with lying. Well, okay, what kinds of situations are those exactly? The murderer, it seems pretty clear, but, what if it's just, your boss asking a legitimate question about your job performance when he has to make layoffs? Can you lie then? Is that a situation where you're defending yourself? It starts to become less clear, and as we start to worry that by getting Kant out of things like the murderer at the door objection, Kant's formulations aren't doing any real work. The worry is, well, you have this murder at the door, you re-describe the situation to avoid that, but that just shows that Kant's formulations aren't doing work. You're doing the work by describing the situation in a way that gets you the quote-unquote right answer. So hopefully we'll talk more about the anti-formalism objection next time. I think Kant does have some answers, but it's very important to see what they are.